We're exploring 5 helpful features in Pro Tools that can improve your editing and mixing skills. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Emily, and I make videos that help you understand the fundamentals of audio engineering, such as recording, mixing, mastering, and other related topics. So if you are new to Pro Tools or just looking to improve your skills, in this video, I'll be going over 5 helpful features just for you. First feature is playback. This might seem like a basic feature, but it is essential for your editing and mixing workflow. And you'll want to know how to control playback and navigate through your session efficiently. Now, I like to use playback in 2 different ways. The first way is to tap on the space bar to play the audio.
Now those hard-fought footsteps, just a waste of time.
And then tap on it again to stop the audio. This is usually how the playback is defaulted to. This is nice if you want to keep listening to the same section of audio each time you play it, because when you hit the space bar to play the audio again, it will start in the same spot you had the cursor on.
Now those hard-fought footsteps, just a waste of time.
The second way that I like to use playback is by selecting the insertion follows playback. That's this button right here. You can hover over that to find the name. With that highlighted in blue, when I hit playback now
those hard-fought footsteps,
where I hit stop is now where that playback will begin when I hit the space bar to play it.
Just a waste of time.
Really cool option. And if you don't want to come up here or you forget which button to press, you can engage that by simply hitting the N key on your keyboard. Next up, let's talk about some bypassing features. Now, sometimes you need to turn off a plugin to see how it affects the audio or the overall mix. Rather than clicking on each plugin and bypassing them one at a time, we can select the track we want to bypass the processing on and inactivate all of those plugins at once, simply by selecting the track and hitting Shift-A. This is especially useful when comparing the mix with and without certain plugins. And this feature also works on all plugins simply by selecting everything. So, if you want to select all the tracks, you'll click on one, hold down Shift, and select the last one that you want to select, and then hold down Shift and A. That way you can bypass every single plugin, or you can select certain tracks simply by holding down Shift and Command, and then selecting which tracks that you want. And again, with our bypass feature, holding down Shift and hitting A. So now just the tracks that are selected can be bypassed. Very useful feature for bypassing plugin chains and seeing what's improving your mix and what's not. Third on our list is the master fader, except I don't use the master fader as a master fader. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Master faders are a little bit different in Pro Tools and maybe in other DAWs that I'm just not familiar with, but on a master fader in Pro Tools, everything is considered post fader, meaning any plugin that I put on my master fader, if I adjust the fader knob on that, it's going to affect the input into the plugins on the master fader. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. I've got a VU meter here on the master fader. Now, when I hit play, watch what happens when I pull down the fader of the overall output of the master fader. You'll see how it takes away audio from going into that master fader.
Oh, northern lady, all dressed up for...
This means if you were to put any sort of compressor or limiter on your master fader, and if you wanted to bring down the fade a little bit or write in a fade out, it's going to affect those plugins and really affect your overall mix. So that's the reason I don't use master faders as a typical master fader. Now, I use a master fader as my cheat fader. I'll show you what I mean. So I usually have everything routed to a aux track here, and then once I print that out, I'll also have this routed to a audio track that I'll actually print the mix to so that I can have that as its own audio file. So I've got this master fader as my cheat fader, and that means that I've got the output going to the input of my master out, what you're hearing. And what that does is it controls the input that's going into this fader now. So if I did have a bunch of plugins here, things to get me to that level that I want to print at, or whatever processing that I want, this is more considered my mix bus. Because if I did want to write a fade with this is going to be after the fact. It's not going to affect the plugins that I have on that mix bus. So what I use this for is that if, say, I've got a plugin on here and I've got a limiter going, let's just say the L2. If I have an L2 on here and my overall mix, I love how it sounds, but it's hitting my plugins on my mix bus just a little too hard, then I will take this cheat fader and I'll just pull it down a little bit to however it sounds best hitting the mix bus processing chain that I have, because it's basically a master fader for everything that's going into that mix bus. Instead of having to select all of these or go back down to your groups and adjust everything all at once, you've got a controller right here that will do all of that. Really cool feature. Next, we've got solo mode features. Now, these are simple but effective tools for isolating tracks and focusing on specific elements of your mix. By default, we select solo and it stays solo, even when we hit solo on another track. It's a very common feature and self-explanatory. But another way of using solo is extremely helpful by selecting the XOR solo mode. And you do that by going up to the Option tab at the top of your screen, at the top of your session, and selecting XOR, cancels previous solo. This allows you to solo a track at a time. So you can easily go through tracks listening to each of them individually. And you can do this without having to unsolo any of the other ones. This is a really handy feature when listening through different takes to see which one works best for your song. And finally, we have the clip gain lines feature. Clip gain is a powerful feature for adjusting the volume of individual clips within a track. Clip gain is adjusting the actual audio file volume, meaning that any adjustments are considered to be pre-plugin or insert. And you can adjust the clip gain by using this little fader, this little knob right here. But what I like to do is add these lines in. So by default, your session may look like this. And you can adjust the overall gain by using this little clip gain feature here. And before, you would have to actually break these things up and then add in another fader if you wanted to adjust certain sections of the audio. But by simply hitting Shift Control on a Mac and the minus key, you can add in those clip gain lines, and now you can just select certain sections and start adjusting without having to add any breaks and then having to add crossfades. And you still have the ability to add in other things just by hitting Command and adding in these automation points that you can use. You can still do all of that very easy. And for me, this feature is always turned on. I never turn it off on any editing, mixing, mastering sessions. I hope you found these 5 Pro Tool features useful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you can see more videos on recording, mixing, and mastering. All right, y'all, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.